Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Courtside with Beanless and Tennis, part of the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. We are recording this one day after my co-host and Hall of Famer himself, Steve Flink, just got back from the very place where he was inducted back in 2017, the International Tennis Hall of Fame in Newport, Rhode Island. Steve, can't wait to discuss this with you. First off, you just got back. How was the trip?
Oh, it was great weekend, David, and it was a remarkable ceremony in a different setting, not on the big stadium court anymore, but more intimate, very elegant, and I thought beautifully done by the original nine, who of course signed their pro contracts with Gladys Hellman back in September 23, 1970, led by Billie Jean, who came back. 7 of the 9 were there, which was great. And they were terrific. Most of them gave little short speeches, and it came off beautifully. And then we, of course, had Dennis Vandermeer being inducted. His wife appeared for him. Dennis passed away a while back, and then of course it concluded with Conchita Martinez and Goran Ivanisevic, who were supposed to go in last year but came back this year out and were able to enjoy their celebration. So it was really I thought one of the better ceremonies I've attended, and very well handled up at the rostrum by Brett Haber. Brett Haber did a great job on these ceremonies, moving it along and injecting some humor, and it was all a joy, to be truthful.
And they moved it up to like early evening this time, so everyone wasn't basking in the sun as it usually happens. It could get brutally hot with people in suits sitting there.
Yeah, absolutely. This time, rather than the old days when we were starting about 12:30, this was a 6 o'clock start. And we were pushed back a little bit by the second men's semifinal of the tournament. So it was really more like 6:30, a little after that. So it was perfect. Getting very foggy, but no rain. So everybody was comfortable and there was no rain. And we got through the ceremony very seamlessly. And it was great fun to be there.
That's great. I want to talk about a couple things in the tournament. Then after this tournament, I want to kind of go into your experience back in 2017, if you don't mind. So
sure.
With that, just a couple highlights from this year's tournament. I want to start with Jack Sock. And again, I mean, it's nice to see him back. We know in this tournament, he lost a close 3-setter to Kevin Anderson in the quarters. He still needs wild cards to get into these main draw events. We all know he lost his way in singles. Some maybe say some in his control, some with injuries out of control. But here's a guy who got to number 8 in the world. It's nice to see him get back. I want to talk about his doubles accomplishments because for me, I think he is the best doubles player on this planet. And I want to just name some numbers, some accomplishments, and I'll let you speak to it. Going all the way back in 2011, he won the mixed doubles, the U.S. Open with Melanie Udan. In 2014, he won Wimbledon with Vasek Pospisil. Oh, who did they beat? They beat a guy named Mike and Bob, last name of the Bryans. In 2017, he made the finals in Miami with Nick Monroe. In 2018, he won Indian Wells with John Isner, beating the Bryan brothers again. Laver Cup. Team World obviously recruits him for doubles. He's 7-2 in doubles. He dominated World Team Tennis in 2020, both in the men's doubles and mixed doubles. He's won 2018 Wimbledon and 2018 U.S. Open titles and the 2018 ATP Finals men's doubles title with Mike Bryan. I say all this, and he won the Olympics gold mixed in 2016 with Bethany and bronze with Stevie Johnson. I say all this because it's not like him and one partner. You could say John McEnroe, his main partner over the years was Peter Fleming, right? Jack Sock has played with a plethora of guys and has had success. It would take some hard convincing for me to say somebody, even a doubles specialist that plays and trains week in and week out, is better on the doubles court than Jack Sock.
No, I don't. I think, you make a very persuasive case. Let's keep in mind, no knock on Jack because he's an outstanding doubles player. But of course, these days you don't get the top singles players playing in doubles. So, I mean, if that was the case, maybe we wouldn't be saying this. But that's not his fault. And that's not his problem.
Laver Cup, you get it a little bit. You get some of the best.
Yes. And sometimes once in a while at Indian Wells and sometimes in Davis Cup they play, but basically they don't play it as a regular forum. But that takes nothing away from Jack. He's been very dedicated to doubles. I wish he had the same kind of self-belief and and ongoing conviction in singles, because he's been in the top 10 in the world. He's made the year-end championships. That shouldn't be just a one-timer, but it may be. But no, he's terrific. And the point you're making, the most important point you're making, is doing it with so many different partners, then achieving these wins over the Bryans, which is no mean feat. So I tip my hat to him, and I hope he's on his way back in both singles and doubles. You're right. He played a very decent match against Anderson, who went on to win the tournament. So no disgrace there. Kevin is resurgent. Kevin's playing really well. Kevin had been unlucky at Wimbledon to hit Novak in the second round. So he's playing really well again, and that was always going to be a difficult match to win. But I hope that Jack keeps working hard between now and the end of the year to sort of restore his singles career as well as playing his top of the line doubles.
Yeah, no, I would agree wholeheartedly. And you mentioned Kevin Anderson. I'm a little biased towards Kevin because he's a University of Illinois guy. So we're all big fans of Kevin Anderson. It was great that he's healthy, won the tournament. Jensen Brooksby, he actually committed to Baylor. My good friend is the head coach there, Michael Woodson. So shout out Baylor tennis and Michael. He never actually played a match there because he was injured, but he's a former Kalamazoo champ. He won it in 2018. He's had huge success on the Futures and Challengers Tour. I think after his loss to Kevin, I think he's 32-6 since January. If you take Futures Challengers and the main tour, I mean, this kid, and the fans loved him. Absolutely loved him. I mean, what are your thoughts on him?
Well, how could they not? This young American, such an appealing guy, hard worker, good all around game, lots of spirit, lots of emoting at the right times. Goes out there and, not having reached the final, and didn't bow to Kevin Anderson by any means. He fought. He made Kevin play better than he did. He really made Kevin work hard, and Kevin's down set point in the tiebreak. This tiebreak was crucial in the first set, and then Anderson went on to win in straight. But it was a really good effort and highly encouraging for him. And now I think he's going to move in to the top one, around 130, 131 in the world now. It's a big step for him, and hopefully, a couple more decent tournaments this summer, we could see him potentially inside the top 100 by fall, or who knows, soon enough, the way he's playing. And he's got really great fighting spirit on the court, positive attitude, and a good all-around game. That's what I like. There's, a little bit of a funky backhand, as some people say. He likes to slice the two-hander at times. I'd rather see him drive it. But the fact is, he acquitted himself really well up in Newport.
Yeah, it'll be fun to watch both Sebastian Korda and Jensen Brooksby in the years ahead and see how they, Sebastian's obviously a couple steps ahead of Jensen right now, but it'll be fun to watch both those guys.
I mean, if he's able to follow in those footsteps, I tip my hat to him. I don't think he's quite of the same caliber because I see Sebastian clearly going to the top 10 in the world. I have no doubt in my mind about this, but this kid is darn good too, and he's certainly a top 30, 40 player at some point soon enough. And then we'll see where he goes from there. Right. That'll be a harder process for him than for Korda to make that leap. But it's nice to have a couple of young Americans emerging.
I was just going to say that. Yes, it is. Okay. This is dedicated to Newport. We've talked all Newport. We're going to continue all Newport. I want to take it back to your special day, special weekend, special year. It's all great. 2017, you were inducted into the Hall of Fame. What an honor that is. If you don't mind, kind of walk us all through the process of it. How does the nomination work? How many are there? Certain number of votes you need to get inducted? Who called you to say you were both nominated and inducted? Just kind of walk us through it.
Yeah, I'm in an unusual position because I happen to serve on the nominating committee. So and that happened with some prior people as well, including Bud Collins. So when that happens and you're going to be discussed, you leave the room. Obviously, right. You have nothing to say in the discussion. Then you come back in and you find out. That's what happened to me in 2016 as I left the room and I came back in and I was told by Stan Smith that I had been nominated. So that I left that room almost shaking. It's sinking in as you're walking back to the press media facility from the room where we had the meeting that you're actually on the ballot. And that's it.
Where's the meeting at? Is it at Newport?
During Wimbledon. Okay. It's held during Wimbledon. It's not in the past. Things have been a little bit thrown off stride. That is the pandemic the last few years, but that's where we were doing the meeting for many, many years. So, but normally if you weren't on the, if you weren't in my position, you might find out a little later. I don't know exactly how they handle it, but they weren't going to not tell me. It's just it doesn't become public knowledge until around US Open time, at least in those years. So then that was the second fun part of the process, was when they sent out the release during the Open, and suddenly I'm getting a flood of emails from colleagues congratulating me. So that was a great feeling. But then, you sit nervously because, the voting is taking place. In that case, the voting was done, but between that point when they sent it out, I think they did it over a 2 or 3 month period, and it closed in November. And so then, yes, you wait for the phone call. And what happened in my case, David, was kind of amusing because Stan Smith called. He's the president of the International Tennis Hall of Fame. Todd Martin is the CEO. So Stan handles the phone calls, bad news or good.
Okay.
So he called me, and I had been out at working out. I'd been at the fitness club. He called. I got the message, and he spoke in a very low key, and I know Stan pretty well. So my read on it was, this does not sound good. He just sounded so somber. Steve, it's Stan Smith. If you could give me a call. I didn't like the feel of it. And it wasn't that, not that I'm not a positive thinker, but so I worked on 2 or 3 different articles that I was working on. I spent the rest of the day just diving into my work. And my wife finally said to me around 5 o'clock, this message had come in at 11:30. You need to call Stan.
How did you wait 6 hours? That's
and
crazy.
finally I realized I can't go to sleep tonight not having called him. So I called him, and he immediately said, Steve, you made it. You made it. And that was just such incredible relief and exhilaration simultaneously. And then he told me about the events coming up and how there'd be a celebration in Australia. Was I coming to Australia? And I actually had already been planning to go. I said, no, I'll be there, and so, well, we're going to announce it out on the court in Australia. I said, so you're going to join us. I said, great. And then it turned out there were about 27 of us on the court, including my class, including Andy Roddick and Monique Kalk. Kim was on video. She couldn't make it to Australia that year, but Monique Kalkman did. She's the wheelchair player. And so there were 3 of us, Monique and Andy and myself. And Andy was interviewed, but there was just this incredible array of champions: Laver, Rosewall, and Becker, Courier, you name it, Chrissy, Martina, Yvonne Goolagong, just so many giants of the game were there as part of the celebration. So that was the next piece. And then finally in July, then we got to walk out on the court that June in Paris for a ring celebration for Guga Kerten. He was getting his Hall of Fame ring. So I got to join other people and walk out on the court at Roland Garros the day of the finals. And then finally in July of that 2017, we had our ceremony. So you remember all. Sorry, you remember all of those pieces. I hope I wasn't too detailed, but it's a step-by-step thing, and you don't forget any part of it. Finding out when you're nominated, the official announcement coming out a few months after you've been told privately, and then knowing that the voting process is going on, waiting to have the votes counted, and then being told one way or another what's happened.
No, a lot of people don't know the step-by-step process. So that's why I wanted you to give the detail of it. So that's perfect.
Keep in mind, David, they have like an accounting firm. The votes are tabulated by an outside firm, so that it's really professionally handled. And then the Hall of Fame people, I guess, are told the end. They have the numbers, and then those are passed on, obviously, to Stan, who has to notify. And in fact, he talked a little bit about that this weekend, that when Conchita Martinez was up on the stage with him at the press conference, about how Conchita, I think, believed this was her 3rd time on the ballot. She'd been unlucky the first 2. So she'd received the bad news phone calls from Stan Smith. She finally got the good news call this past year, well, more than a year, because she should have gone in last year. But what a nice thing for her, and so appreciative, as was Goran Ivanisevic, because they'd each won one major. They weren't shoo-ins, but they obviously were hoping. And I think sometimes, David, players like that, it means even more to them than it does to the superstars. Not that the superstars don't think it's a singular honor, but
they know they're in.
Yeah. They know they're in at a certain point. Absolutely. Right. And here are 2 players that didn't know they were in, And here's Goran, it took him all those years until 2001 to win Wimbledon after having lost 3 previous finals. And he finds, and he had been on the ballot once before and not gotten in. And Kachida, I guess, was twice. So it made it even sweeter for them that in the end they did make it.
Got it. Talk, if you don't mind,
And
talk
now
a
in my
little
case,
bit about. Okay.
sorry to interrupt. In my case, I was so lucky that I got the first ballot, my first time on there, and
Right.
I got on. You can't be more fortunate than that.
For sure. Was interested in the weekend itself for you back in 2017. It was so awesome to see that you got to bring your dad there. Do you get there like I mean, obviously, if you want to go early to see the tennis, when did you get there? Did you get there on a Friday where the festivities almost all on Saturday? Did it start Friday night? What's the whole weekend like?
I got there, and well, it's different for everybody. I think most inductees will get there maybe Thursday night. That's what I did, and then Friday there's various things going on. Then there's dinner Friday night, and then Saturday is the ceremony. You're doing different things Friday, the different little functions. Then Friday night dinner, then Saturday, at that time midday, contrasting with now when they moved it to 6 p.m. So yeah, I think that's pretty much the standard procedure for the inductees to be sure to be there at some point Thursday to be prepared for various things going on Friday and a Friday night dinner and then Saturday ceremony.
For the listeners, you can find Steve's speech. It's about 8 minutes. You can go on YouTube and find it. And Steve did a wonderful job. So definitely go check it out. And
Now, David, you're not supposed to tell them that. They actually, amusingly enough, it's funny you said that about it. You try to keep it to about 5 if you can. That's what they prefer.
you did about 8. You were okay.
Right. Oh yeah, it was close enough. And I felt like I didn't go on too long.
No, you didn't.
Yeah.
One thing that you really kind of hit home with was how humbled you were and how humbling the whole experience was. So well deserved for you. But you yourself as a tennis historian, I mean, Newport, there's no place like it, right? I mean, everything about it just oozes the history of tennis.
It does. It does. You feel that you go walk through the museum, you see the exhibits, and I know how much it's changed having been up there so many times. I started going to the ceremonies myself. I've been every year since 95. So I've seen, and I had been up and seen Newport before that, before even going to the ceremonies. I'd been a few times, sometimes in the 70s and 80s for tournaments and functions. So I saw how this place evolved, and it's just remarkable what they've done with that museum and all the interactive stuff. And they made it such a pleasure for people of all ages. So, you feel that history walking through the museum. And then as an inductee, you also see what they've created on your behalf in the exhibit, and it's all humbling is the right word. And it's a little surreal as well to feel, to know that that's going to be kind of a permanent historical home for you. That never disappears. You're in, and it's permanent.
Amazing. And how special was it to have your family and your dad there? I mean, that's the best. That's the ultimate, right?
Well, yeah, especially since he really kind of, he had played tennis himself, my father. He was 93 when he came to the ceremony, still going strong at 97 now. But he's the one that had kind of inspired me by his club tennis. Watching him as a kid got me pretty excited. And I used to watch him putting away these overheads that would bounce about a foot beyond the service line and go over the back fence. And I always got a kick out of that as a kid. And then it led to me starting to play. And then the big moment was when he took me up to Wimbledon when I was 12, turning 13 in 1965, not knowing that it was going to become an addiction, but it did. So I just felt like, and also in the early years, he had a knack for meeting people. He was always a very gregarious person. So he was able to introduce me to a lot of players that he'd introduced himself to before I became a writer, but when I already had the goal of which, because by the time I was 15, I knew I wanted to be a tennis writer. I was clear in my mind about that. So it only took really 2 years past that first Wimbledon for me to know that was my career path. At least it was in my mind. So he played a big role in that sense of really, his interest in tennis and exposing me to Wimbledon. And it really kind of rocketed from there.
Well, your career turned out all right. So thank you so much for going behind the scenes, opening up the door a little bit. going into some detail that I know I didn't know the details, and I know a lot of the listeners won't know the details. So appreciate you sharing your experiences, because it's just such a cool place. Again, such an honor. It's so cool that you're part of it, and appreciate you giving us some insight on what really is a special place.
No, it's very special. And the whole thing, I have to say, they do handle things in such a professional manner, with the various committees, with the people that are considered, with the discussion of the players or the contributors, and then it eventually will go out to not sure exactly what the number of voters is, but they're international writers from everywhere on the globe, and people that really know the sport. And then, of course, if you're in my shoes, you're at their mercy. They're going to make a judgment on you. They're going to judge, in my case, my body of work. In the player's case, they're going to look at those records and say, is that enough to give them a ticket to Newport? So it's quite a process, but I think it's very thorough and very fair. I think the way they've set things up. And I know that from many years of experience.
And this is a regular summer stop for the Flinks now, right? You go there pretty much every year, unless you got a conflict. But
Yeah, absolutely. No, I have every year since '95. So that's the other part that made it so special, is that I had been gone to all these ceremonies, starting with Chrissy Everett in '95, and I saw Connors go in '98, and McEnroe in '99, and Martina Navratilova a year later. All of these greats, Lendl a few years after that, and just ceremony after ceremony, that sometimes not quite icons like that, but very deserving players, Justine Annan and Mauresmo and all these. And I loved every single year. I loved watching the reactions of the recipients and what they had to say. And so I had viewed it for so long that to then suddenly be standing up at that microphone myself was kind of staggering.
So cool. Hey, the tennis historians are gonna love listening to this. Thanks so much, Steve, for sharing this. This was great.
Thank you, David. I enjoyed it.
We'll talk later. Bye.
Bye.